Hey everyone, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. This episode again covers a lot of events, so let's get straight to it because we don't have a lot of time. And we start with the Kherson region, with the region of Oleshki. Last time, in last video, I mentioned that Ukrainians were doing a little bit of a push towards Oleshki from the Antonovsky Bridge, and that they secured some kind of a bridgehead or a beachhead. I don't know what would be the right here on the other shore of the Dnipro River, which is really extraordinary because so far we've seen only small groups of Ukrainians operating on the left bank of the river. This time, however, at first it was like 50-man strong force that came into this direction, and then this happened what I already mentioned, that Russians had a lot of their defenses basically washed down with the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam by Russians, and now they're struggling to defend these parts. So Ukrainian troops were able to land. They were able to establish some initial positions, and they were able to defend it against an upcoming Russian troops. They were complaining for a couple of days that there was no aviation support for the region, and whenever they were trying to push against Ukrainians, they would just get obliterated. Since then, Ukrainians have reinforced, and now, as we know, there's a couple of hundred of Ukrainian troops on the shore, on the left bank of the river. Russians were not able to retake those positions. Additionally, the aviation that was trying to fly in, sorry, I should use red for Russia, the aviation that was trying to fly in from the Russian side, they actually said, oh wow, this is actually a no-go for us because Ukraine has actually deployed some anti-air defenses, the S-300 missiles in the area. So now Russians are in a weird position where Ukrainian troops are getting forces on the left bank, and it's becoming a bigger problem. Now, importantly, what I want to underscore here, this is not like a Normandy landing. This is not like a massive assault. So far, it's been like a couple hundred of units. So Ukrainians are getting a foothold on the left bank. Yes, this is confirmed, but this is not yet to the scale that it's a problem that's going to collapse the front line. We're not there yet, but this is still a good news to know about. We then continue towards the bank of the water storage. Basically, yeah, that is still blue here on this map, but obviously it's now been drained significantly because of the explosion of the Kakhovka Dam. And in this reservoir, what was to be a reservoir, a lot of people were saying, is the land dry enough? And now we know that, unfortunately, no, because some pictures came out where a person walks on the supposedly dry sand of the Kakhovka reservoir. And as I said and explained to you that the water is the sand is gonna be very wet for meters and meters, we see that even just the weight of the normal person still leaves the tracks in the sand. So the ground is still extremely wet. So there is no chance that Ukrainians will be able to traverse this area here and attack Russians. Now, about a week ago, Ukrainians have retook Pyatikhatki. And since then, there has been quite heavy fighting for the Zherebyanki village. This is Zherebyanki village. I explained to you that it's important because this is where the local heights are. So Ukrainians were supposedly taking the heights, but then Russians also counterattacked. So far, Zherebyanki stays in a very strong gray zone. And Ukrainians, while I'm hearing positive developments here, nothing has confirmed me yet that Zherebyanki has been liberated, but I'm following this very closely. A lot more positive outlook, however, comes from the 47 Mechanized Brigade in the area of Robotyne and Novodanilivka and so on. Here, we definitely know that Ukrainians have advanced significantly. There has been reports, and Russians have acknowledged this. Robotyne, I would not say that it's been taken yet, but definitely we have reports that Ukrainians at least are operating on the field. Sorry, I'll just kind of come back because I'm coloring the Robotyne. So we know that Ukrainians are trying to expand this area that they're dipping in, the salient that is moving towards Robotyne. And 47th Brigade is reporting that they're having a very good progress. They're clearing the trenches. And I'm going to talk about the biggest challenges that they're facing when I'm going to cover the rest of the southern front line. Now, Around the Priyutne and Staromayorsk in this place, here we have a couple of things. Firstly, Priyutne is definitely in a gray zone. We've seen that a couple of days ago, Ukrainians have confirmed retaking of Rivnopil. Rivnopil is located on the hill, and then there is like a little bit of a valley where the water is, and then there is the hill again. So, and Priyutne is like on this other part of the hill. So, if you can imagine, like hill, and there is a little bit of a valley. And so Ukrainians have taken this hill on Rivnopil, and we definitely know that they have been pushing towards Priyutne. And I have positive news generally coming from the area of Priyutne. Russians have not acknowledged yet, but definitely I would say look out for good news from Priyutne. Additionally, on the east side, Ukrainians have been advancing throughout the fields, and now they're flanking Staromayorsk, and Russians are getting really, really worried. There have been multiple reports about saying that Ukrainians are advancing and taking more and more ground on the fields, which is to the east of Staromayorsk. And additionally, with the fall of Rivnopil, they're going to be advancing on top of this hill, which kind of overlooks Staromayorsk. So at some point, Ukrainians will kind of overlook, because Staromayorsk is located in a valley. So at some point, Ukrainians will overlook from top of the hill on the Staromayorsk, and basically whatever is happening in Staromayorsk is going to be sitting ducks. But Ukraine is continuing their advances slowly but surely. And this is where I want to kind of stop and explain the southern front line in the major terms, because a lot of people have been asking, and obviously you are worried. Like, not everyone is sharing my optimism about the offensive, because for me, offensive is going great. Like, I compare this offensive that is going on with other offensive campaigns that were happening in other wars, and tempo is even exceeding to some extent than some of the other wars have seen. So that's why I'm not worried. And besides that, I'm listening to the experts and what they're saying and what they're trying to say. But what we need to understand here is that Ukraine is executing probably one of the most, if not the most, difficult challenge that an army can face, an army units. They are trying to attack a well-fortified, well-prepared position of the enemy heads-on without having a significant air support. They are fighting a war in a way that no other country, especially when we're saying like, oh, but Ukrainians have gotten NATO training. They've gotten NATO training, yes, but NATO would never fight a war this way. This goes so against the NATO doctrine that this should never be done. Because in NATO doctrine, an air dominance is what pretty much engages all of the other elements. Because here Ukraine wants to attack into Russian positions without having like full-blown man slaughterhouse like Russians did, essentially getting over the minefields by just throwing bodies at them. And Ukrainians are actually writing a book right now on how would you attack an enemy that you do not have an air superiority with, because we see what Ukrainian plan is by this point, right? It's not a secret, because another why I'm optimistic at this, we've seen in the month of June that Ukraine has strongly targeted Russian artillery. They have been stockpiling high-precision ammunition for a while now. That's why we, for example, didn't see as many HIMARS strike before this offensive. And now they're using a lot of high-precision artillery to take out Russian artillery, to use it for counter-battery fire. Because in a month of June, we will have Ukraine destroying, because I'm still recording this technically in a month of June and it's not over, but in month of June we will have Ukraine destroyed over 700 pieces of artillery or multiple rocket launch systems, which is a stupendously big amount. It's so beyond any kind of comprehension that it's even silly to think about. It's the number of artillery that Ukraine got supplied basically over the whole last year from allies, maybe a little bit more from the allies, but it's at least very, very close. So in 1 month, Ukraine has deleted a lot of artillery from the southern direction. And we see what they want to do. Ukraine wants to put the odds towards them. Ukraine wants to say, okay, we just need to get through this. It's going to be a slog. Because the main challenge for Ukrainian fast advance on the ground is mines. Russians have mined everything. This has been pretty much the bane of all the existence of Ukrainian attack. And this is what everyone is reporting, because the amount of mining, I believe, was not even imaginable. And this is, mines are layered. So you have the anti-tank mines that are layered with anti-personnel mines that are layered with distance mining systems, and everything in between, plus the artillery, plus everything else. Hey, Future Georgie here. So one of the most important things that I think I missed when I was explaining about the mines is that in modern war, because of the drones, the surveillance and reconnaissance is just so much more efficient than whatever was available before. So right now, getting equipment and demining done is significantly harder than any other book or any other experience from previous war would recommend. So right now it takes a whole new experience to be developed by Ukrainians right now to overcome this. So let's go back to video now. So it takes a significant effort to get through that minefield. Now, a lot of you also said, well, you know, they have this demining equipment that they're sending from the NATO West. And I say to you, remember the first point that I said, that Ukraine is advancing without having air superiority. And this is where lack of air superiority is really hitting Ukrainians a lot. This is where the fact that Russia has their air assets that are able to target the mine plows, they're able to target the demining equipment, they're able to have a night vision in the sky. So it creates a lot of difficult challenges. Now, importantly here, what I want to understand, so you don't get my point wrongly, like I'm saying that Ukraine will not be able to achieve this. They will. It's just not going to be fast, because what Ukraine has right now on the table, it has enough resources for this offensive. It has enough resources to reach this offensive. The problem is that the challenges that are presented to Ukrainians takes time to overcome, because they cannot fully utilize the capabilities that they're having on the ground, such as demining equipment, because it's vulnerable to the enemy air assets that cannot be denied, because Ukraine still doesn't have planes. So the answer to why is it going too slow? Because there is no planes. To put it simply, to put it simple words that you can understand and I can understand. Because Western allies were so indecisive in sending equipment to Ukraine that we couldn't decide that Ukraine needs planes, that they flipped around and so on and said like, oh, but we trained Ukrainian troops to fight like NATO forces, and then not give the main component of the NATO forces, the planes. But with that said, can there still be a breakthrough? Yes, absolutely there can be, because remember artillery damages? If Russia will not have artillery, then there is a big possibility that when at certain part of the front line, the artillery saturation is going to be so low that Ukraine is going to have significant enough saturation of artillery systems that they will be able to try again for a breakthrough, and we're going to see how it goes. Additionally, situation for Russians is terrible around Bakhmut area. Here they have two extremely difficult positions. One is around Kurdyumivka and one is around Klishchiivka. Kurdyumivka is right here, like far south from Bakhmut, and Klishchiivka is just south from Bakhmut. I'm just gonna... So there is Bakhmut at the top here, this is Klishchiivka, and this is Kurdyumivka. And Russians are right now in a really bad positions, because last week Ukrainians have reported that they fully cleared out this territory that is to the west of the river here. It's like a small channel. And beyond that, we also know that Ukrainians have secured a little bit of a bridgehead around the area of Kurdyumivka. And Kurdyumivka is a key to whatever is happening in the north. I will try to show you this in a kind of time preview. I will switch back to the year 2022, November 15th. So this is 15th of November 2022. And here we can see Kurdyumivka. And I want you to see how the situation for Kurdyumivka and control of the area develops as the Russian advances happen. So you see Russian try to advance, and then they took Ozarinivka, which is right next to Kurdyumivka. And from there, once kind of Kurdyumivka and Zelenopile and so on, and this line appeared for Russians, this is where they were able to secure. So this line is extremely important for Russians to secure, because this is their fallback line whenever they want to execute. Sorry, I should use red for Russians. They should, whenever they want to advance towards Klishivka, towards Ukraine, and so on and so on and so on. So this is a big defensive positions. Therefore, on a practical level, I explained to you that Kurdyumivka, if it falls, it's going to destroy this whole kind of defense line. So we will probably see at some point Russians being quite quickly maybe pushed back to the next position here, which is really, really nice. Additionally, Russians are having big trouble to Klishivka. I need to get to today again. Yes. So, and around Klishivka. So here, the map is extremely unupdated, because right now, the north, this hills north of Klishivka, I have reports for sure, and Ukrainian soldiers are saying that they are already pretty much fighting in these trenches, and they just reported that they've captured a lot of Russian VDV troops. And basically, as soon as these hills are captured, Klishivka is done for. So basically, Ukrainians are saying that Klishivka is now just a matter of time. They don't have anything to fall back to. And this is kind of just explaining to you that there is an attack here and there is an attack here. And both of those attacks are targeting very key areas south of Bakhmut. So Ukrainians are going to have success in the area, and I'm expecting that success to be quite soon. Thank you so much for watching this, guys. We are still continuing trying to get enough support for getting a truck to the armed forces of Ukraine. We're almost done. We're like over 80% there. So it's kind of the last stretch that we just need to complete. So if you have the chance, please donate, support the guys at the front line. I'm going to be going into Latvia for a festival for like 2 weeks. So the quality of this video will unfortunately drop, because I'm going to be doing these reports from my notebook. But hopefully you will still stay here, because I'm going to stay here for you. I love you all, guys. Slava Ukraini. Support Armed Forces of Ukraine. Trust in Armed Forces of Ukraine. And I will see you next time.